Again, thank you for joining us this morning. We wanted to partner with WeBank on an awesome opportunity to engage and educate women business owners in recognition of Women's History Month. We just celebrated International Women's Day, so women power, women power. I am the director of Supply Diversity and Small Business Enterprise Program for Jackson Health System. Jackson is the provider of healthcare services to the citizens of Miami-Dade County in Miami, Florida. We are an over 2,000 bed health system. I think we're at 2,200 beds right now. We have 7 hospitals. We recently even opened a brand new hospital in Doral, Florida. So we see upwards of 1 million patients every year. We have 14,000 employees. I mentioned 7 hospitals, but we also have primary care centers and urgent care centers throughout Miami-Dade County. So we are a sizable entity. And with that, we do a lot of purchasing. We purchase everything you can possibly think of as it relates to goods and services. And we are doing the best we can to diversify our supplier base. So that means that we are looking for underutilized businesses, minority-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses, women-owned businesses. So if you are not familiar with Jackson, I do encourage you, I'll put some information in the chat shortly about how you can work with our system or look at the opportunities that we have available. So with that, I've introduced myself and Jackson Health. I'd like to go around and introduce our other participants today. I'm going to introduce someone who all of us know and appreciate the dedication and the work that she has brought to the women business owner community, but also the community at large, and that's Nancy. Nancy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Beautiful. Thank you. And I am so happy to be here. And when Amber and I talked about doing something for Women's History Month, I think back in October or November, it seemed like it was so far away. And then all of a sudden it's already here. So we are so happy to present to you this morning some interesting information. We have a short workshop that we'll do on negotiation, and then you'll hear from some of our members and guests who are contractors with Jackson Health, and you'll hear some of their tips and techniques and tools. So pull out your pencils and your pens and your paper and get ready to take some great notes. We're happy that you're here.
Thank you, Nancy. And next on my screen, I have an awesome woman that I've had the pleasure of working with for several years. I think one of the first businesses that I encountered when I came into the role here at Jackson, and that's Kim Haley with Metabra. Kim, please introduce yourself.
Everyone, and it's so nice to see the faces I've known for years and some new faces. I'm very grateful to Jackson Health. I'm a breast cancer survivor that invented a product that has innovation, been recognized by WBENC at their national convention, which I am grateful for that. I just wanted to really thank you all for your support in my mission of Metabra. You have been a great partner for Metabra and for making a long overdue humanitarian change in patient care. So thank you.
Thank you, Kim. And I shared with Kim recently that my mother was a beneficiary of one of her products not long ago. So it's important that we work together and support women-owned businesses because we need the goods and services that you provide. Next on my screen, I have Johanna, one of my colleagues from Jackson Health. Johanna, please introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joanna Miranda, and I am a Senior Procurement Contracting Officer for goods and services. And I have the pleasure of working with Jackson for the last 6 years.
Thank you. Time flies.
Yes.
And last but certainly not least, my colleague Lori, also from Procurement Management. Lori, would you introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Lori Cola. I'm a Senior Procurement Contracting Officer for Goods and Services with Jackson Health Systems. I've been here for the past 7 years, and I've had the honor of working with Ms. Amber Lawhorn. And we have grown together within these years, and we are excited to be here. And I'm ready to answer some questions and talk about negotiation strategies today for you guys.
Thank you so much, Lori. And I'd like to also mention online, we have my colleague, my partner in the small business program, which is Miranda Yaguno. She's our small business program specialist. So thank you, Miranda, for joining us today as well. Okay, so we are going to get right into our program. We have an amazing workshop. I'm really excited to learn about how to improve my own skills. So we have an amazing workshop that will be presented by Nancy, and then we're going to move into a panel discussion about some real life strategies and activities as it relates to negotiation on the contracting side. So with that, I'll turn it over to Nancy.
Thank you. So I was certified through the program on negotiation at Harvard Law School a couple of years back. I went through a course and got certified in negotiation. And one of the things that was so interesting to me during that course is that they talked about women and negotiations, but only in the sense of salary negotiations, which I found really fascinating, right? And it seems as though there's an opportunity for those of us that are interested in talking and promoting and teaching and training about negotiation for contracting, right? Specifically for women, because I think that women sometimes have some very specific challenges when it comes to negotiating contracts. But over the course of this presentation, I hope that you will learn some great information and some tips. So a little bit about me. I'm an author and a guide. I'm an international speaker. And whenever I do a presentation, I use this photo. And I use this photo intentionally because it reminds me to remind you that nothing has to be perfect and that there is actually joy in imperfection. And, you know, women, we tend to not step into something until we feel we can check off all of the boxes, right? And then that we know perfectly what we're doing. So the story of this photo is that it was taken at the end of a professional headshot session. And the photo, so we had taken, you know, the regular look straight into the camera, smile, but not too widely, you know, that kind of the professional headshot sessions. And at the end, the photographer said, okay, well, let's just do some fun shots. And her assistant sat on the floor with a big piece of cardboard and she changed the music and she said, okay, just dance and have fun. And the shot before this one, my hair was perfect. The shot after this one, my hair was perfect. And she told me that she hesitated in sending me this photo because, you know, it really wasn't a headshot, right? And I've loved it ever since. I use it all the time, again, to remind you that it doesn't have to be perfect to be good. You don't have to have everything, all the I's dotted and the T's crossed in order to move forward as you want to grow and scale your business. And that is really true when it comes to negotiations. So we're going to try to pull up a poll. Steph, let me know if you can get that poll going. Oh, it's not working. Okay, so let's just put in the chat. Are you a good negotiator, or do you think you're not so good at negotiating? So just take a minute and answer that in the chat. What we find generally is women tend to say they're not so good at negotiation. And I always challenge you, women are actually great negotiators. And we're great negotiators because we do it all the time. And we do it really without thinking that we're negotiating. So if you have young children at home, or at some point had young children at home, remember back when you were trying to get your kids ready for school, right? You were negotiating. You were encouraging your kids to get dressed and ready for school, to have their breakfast. Don't forget your lunchbox. And if you had a partner who was helping you, sometimes you were negotiating with that partner. Can you take Sally to school today because I can't make it. I've got a class or a presentation, or I'm running late, right? We negotiate all the time. And we have some really great negotiation characteristics, which is relationship building. Great negotiators are really good at building relationships. Women are really good at building relationships. Communication skills, multitasking, right? So if you're in the midst of a negotiation, you're going to be taking in everything that's going around and paying close attention. You may be speaking to one person, but you can see in your peripheral vision the reaction to the presentation or the proposal that you're making. So we are really good at multitasking. And then finally, we seek affinity and common ground. We do that naturally. We do that by intention and by design. And that's a really important skill in negotiation, is to seek affinity and common ground, because a really successful negotiation ends with a win-win. I got what I wanted, but you also got what you wanted, right? And we found some common ground. So the other important things about negotiations are that it's all about mindset, environment, and outcomes. So regarding mindset, you always want to remember to be open and flexible during a negotiation. The environment, it turns out, as you can probably imagine, that where you do the negotiation can affect the negotiation, right? If at all possible, claim the home court advantage. Have the person come to your place for negotiation. But if you're a vendor and you're going to be negotiating with Jackson Health, going to their office is a really good thing. It shows your commitment. It shows respect, that you're not demanding that they come to you, or you're not putting up a fuss that we have to meet at their office. And so you really want to take advantage of creating a really good environment. And then outcomes is all about expectations. So there's a term in negotiation called the BATNA, BATNA, and it stands for the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. And what that means is that you need to go into a negotiation with what you really, really want and what you're willing to accept, okay? And be gracious about getting what you're willing to accept, even if you can't get what you really, really want. So I like to share this quote. I think it's important because it speaks to vision and clarity. And those are two really important things in negotiation. So the quote is attributed to Michelangelo, and he says, "I saw the angel in the marble and carved until I set him free." And kind of what happens in a negotiation, right? You see what you want and you kind of carve things out. You work things out until you get what you want. So over the course of the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to present to you 3 stories and 8 steps of really good negotiation tactics. So I'm going to talk to you about Monica and the tech solution, Terry and the sustainability solution, and Abby and the safety solution. And in each case, I'll highlight something important about their negotiation strategy. So Monica's story, Monica is a certified woman business owner who has a software technology company. And she was in the middle of a very large international contract, always going well. And so when she got a phone call from her contractor, asking her to come to the office, they needed to speak to her. She thought, oh, they're going to extend my contract because we're meeting all of the metrics. We've got great reviews. Everything is going well. So she goes to this meeting, and much to her surprise, within 5 minutes of arriving and sitting down, she is told that every vendor is being asked to cut costs by 25%. And 25% cut for her was going to mean that she's going to have to let go of some employees because it was in the millions of dollars. And so Monica is a very astute negotiator, and her first reaction was to say, okay, I understand what you're asking me. Let me get back to you. And she ended the meeting. She said, thank you very much. I'll get back to you. And she walked out of the meeting. That is an incredible tactic to keep in your back pocket. Okay. She left the meeting and she said all the way back to her office, she was trying to figure out, how am I going to do this? I don't want to reduce the contract by 25% because it's going to mean I'm going to need to let, a lot of my people go. So she got back to her office and she sat down with her team, and they decided to make a counter offer. So they were asked to cut by 25%. She negotiated a 20% reduction. And the way she did that was by telling the client, if we cut our services by 25%, your bottom line is going to suffer even more than you're telling me your bottom line is suffering now. Because we all know that it's easier to keep a client than to get a client. And if we cut the staff that's doing the customer service and interventions for your existing clients, you are going to lose clients. It turns out that she was able to negotiate the 20% instead of the 25% reduction. And at the end of the day, they told her that none of the other vendors had countered. They all agreed to the 25%. So she shot way up in their esteem because they felt that she really knows her business. She was looking out after their business, and they continued on with her. So I use that as an example to share with you that you can actually create the solution you want. Monica had, it could have gone both ways, two ways, right? Monica could have at the meeting said, oh, okay, I'll cut by 25%. Or she could have, dug her heels in and said, no, that's a breach of contract. We're in the middle of a contract. I'm meeting all aspects of this contract. You cannot ask me to cut by 25%. What she did instead was ask for some time to present a counter offer. So Monica was very creative in the solution that she provided. And I'd like to share with you now some techniques, which I call creative strategies for negotiation. And I'm using the word creative so that you can remember all of these tips and techniques. So the C in the creative negotiation strategies is all about clarity. The R is research. E is extra, not yourself. And I'll explain that in a minute. A is alternative. You always want to have some kind of an alternative. T is for time frame. I is for investment. V is value add, and E is energy. So the attitude or the energy you bring to the negotiations. So as far as clarity is concerned, always remember that the person opposite you wants to know what's in it for me, just as they're expecting that you want to know what's in it for me when you're doing a negotiation, right? So you need to be really clear about what the purpose is of the meeting, of the negotiation. So what do you want? Do you want access? Do you want opportunity? Do you want a contract? You can negotiate access. So you could meet someone at a conference and decide, okay, that's the person in supplier diversity, but what you really want is to meet the person who's going to be buying your product. Well, you can negotiate that, right? So you can negotiate access, you can negotiate opportunities, and of course you can negotiate contracts, right? So that's what you want. Be clear on what the purpose of your meeting is. What do they want? They want the best deal. The good news is that our corporate sponsors have told us many, many times that the best deal does not necessarily mean the least expensive proposal. Okay, so keep that in mind. Your proposal does not have to be the least expensive of the hundreds that they're looking at. If you provide other services, other solutions that they're after. So the how is as far as clarity is concerned, is how will you get what you want and also give them what they want? Being clear and strategic is going to help you do that. So researching is key. So let me share Abby's story. So Abby was one of our members, and she scaled her company and got some investors. And, you know, through our process of certification, she no longer qualifies because these investors took a larger percentage of her company, an equal percent. But so Abby's story is really interesting. She is a general contractor, and her base of operations was in Naples, Florida. And she was in the middle of an interior remodel. So a very high-end, as she tells the story, a very high-end bathroom that she was doing for one of her clients. And at the end of the day, because of the size of the shower stall and the glass and the marble and everything, she arrived to her client's home with a handicap bar. Now, you probably have all seen those handicap bars. They look pretty industrial, not very attractive. And her client said, no, I don't want that in my bathroom. And Abby said, well, I'm sorry, but it's got to go because we're not going to pass inspection. And if we don't pass inspection, I can't close this project out. And the client insisted, no, I do not want that. It looks ugly and I don't want it. Come up with a solution. So Abby went back to her office and she started doing some research. Okay, it does look industrial and ugly. Does it have to look this way? Just because something has been done a certain way doesn't mean it absolutely has to be that way. So in her research, she found that a handicap bar has to be a certain length and it has to be a certain width. And the third thing, it has to be of an antimicrobial element, right? Material, so that it doesn't hold germs and mold and that sort of thing. And so Abby created a whole new product. And if you go on to her website, it's called Great Grabs. She created a beautiful handicap bar that looks like a David Yurman bracelet. So those of you who wore David Yurman bracelets, so a couple of years back, they were really popular. It's like a twisted metal, right? And so Abby's version of this handicap bar looks like a David Yurman bracelet. And she bills her company as jewelry for your bathroom. And she's gone beyond jewelry for your bathroom to safety solutions. And I'm sharing this story because Abby ended up expanding her business from the construction into having designed and patented this really beautiful design. And what is important about this story is that she listened to the person that she was negotiating with, right? Her client said, no, I don't want that. Find a solution. And really great negotiators find solutions, right? Research equals knowledge and power. It gives you perspective. It helps you be a better listener. Research allows you to really know your numbers. And that's really key because we've had women business owners tell us that they've negotiated contracts in all different situations, in the hotel room, because that's when the contracts officer was available, in the airport, because that's when the contracts officer was available. And without a proper knowledge of the numbers, your own numbers, as far as what it's going to cost you, how much you can give, what percentage and all that, you may be at a disadvantage. So do your research. Research also increases your own leverage and it builds your confidence. Let's see. There we go. So here's how you can do some research. Go to your client's website. Look at what's important to them. Mirror your language to their language. If they call it sustainability, speak about sustainability. If they call it environment, and ESG is a really big principle or term right now, right? Environment, social, and governance principles. If that's what your client is talking about, then you use those terms. Connect with your potential client on LinkedIn. Well, who are they following? You start following those people as well. Look at Facebook and Instagram, Twitter, Google. It's all about establishing some kind of a relationship, right? And you can use Google, their websites, their LinkedIn profiles, their social media. You can use all of that to your advantage because it informs you about who they are, what they're interested in. I was helping a client one time get prepared for a meeting, and when we Googled the person she was going to be meeting with, it turns out that that person was in the military, and the client's husband was in the military, so they had an immediate connection, right? You want to use this research in order to build a relationship, because ultimately people do business with people they know, they like, and they trust. So you want to focus your research on how you can build a really great relationship. The E in the creative process is all about extra and not yourself. So it turns out that women are fierce negotiators if they are negotiating on behalf of someone else. So again, think about your family, right? If you have to meet with someone to get your son or your daughter some extra help at school, you're going to be a fierce negotiator about that. The same with think about your employees, right? As you're negotiating a contract, think about your employees. Remember Monica's story? She was not willing to accept that 25 reduction because it meant she was going to have to let go of some of her employees. So if you have some trepidation about negotiating and you think that as the owner of the company, as the president, the boss of the company, I'm actually negotiating for myself, look beyond yourself and think about your employees and also your community. What might you be able to do with the extra money you're asking for and potentially getting, right? What might you be able to do for your community? And keep in mind, you can do what I cannot do. I can do what you cannot do. Together, we can create great things. And that's all, again, just about building relationships so that you get what you want and I get what I want. So let me share Terry's story. So Terry Lehman is the owner of True Green Enterprises. And she shared with me how she negotiated a contract with Disney. And it was a long time over years, she developed a relationship with Disney. So she started out and met them at the Go for the Greens conference one year. Every year we participate in a Go for the Greens conference sponsored by Disney and UPS and now Nike in September in Orlando. And she first met Disney at a matchmaker meeting. And Terry is in the sustainability space and she creates treeless paper products. So treeless in the sense that she uses sugarcane bagasse and bamboo fibers to create her paper products. She's not destroying trees and hurting the environment that way. Her products are treeless. And when she first met with the representatives at Disney, they said, "Oh, that's lovely, but we already have someone, a contract with someone who's providing us with napkins and paper towels at Disney." So she said, "Okay, fine. Thank you for the meeting." And then because she was on their mailing list, she was invited to a couple of other meetings over the course of a couple of years. And all along those years, she was collecting napkins from different Disney properties and parks. And she said it was really not very technical what she was doing. She would find a napkin and she would put it in a baggie and she would label where she got the napkin and the date that she found this napkin. And she finally, after about 2 years, she finally got a meeting with the contract officer who was looking at a new contract for napkins and paper towels. And so she arrived prepared to this meeting. She had, all the napkins and things that she had collected. And the contracts officer said to her, "Oh my gosh, I know we buy a lot of napkins, but I didn't realize it was this many and in these different sizes." He'd never seen the, an array of all of the napkins for Disney. And so she said, "Well, let's, I know that you have an existing contract. My napkins are sustainable. And I went on your website and I know that you have a very large sustainability initiative. And I'd like you to consider my napkins because they're sustainable and they meet your goals." And she said, and usually people, when I tell them that I create products that are treeless, they think that they must not be the same quality, they must not feel the same. So I'd like to invite you, she said to this person, to do a blind touch test. Would you be game? And the gentleman said yes. So she put a blindfold on his face and she said, "Okay, I'm going to put 2 napkins in front of you. Feel them both and tell me, do you feel a difference?" And he did this over the course of a couple of samples. And every time he said, "I can't feel the difference. I can't feel the difference. They feel exactly the same." And she said, "That's right. They feel exactly the same. Mine are sustainable. Those are not." And she ended up with the contract. Okay, so I share Terry's story as an example of how creative you can be when you're negotiating, because she could have said up one way and down the other, which is what she had been saying: "My napkins are sustainable, my napkins are sustainable." But the perception was they're not going to be of equal quality. Right? The A in the creative process is all about the alternative. So you want to always have some kind of an alternative when you go into a negotiation, right? Offer an alternative solution. That's what I was talking about earlier with the BATNA, the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. Go in there with an alternative. I want this, but I'm willing to accept that. You always lead with what you want, and you can stretch it a bit so that you have some room for negotiation, right? Some wiggle room, but don't stretch it so much that you're going to be insulting the other person or taking it to an extreme. Okay, so go in prepared with an alternative. Be committed to the vision, but not attached to how you get there, is a quote that's attributed to Patrice Washington. And it's a reminder that things can be, you can have one way of doing things, right? You're committed, you have a vision. People think that commitment and attachment are 2 sides of the same coin, right? But they're actually quite different. So you can be committed to something, but if you're not attached to how you're going to get that, the world opens up for you. And the story of Patrice Washington and why she shares this quote is that prior to the pandemic, her entire business was speaking. And she, prior to the pandemic, was traveling all over the world speaking on money matters. Her focus is women. And then the pandemic shut everything down. And she had to decide, how is it that she can fulfill her vision, keep her business going now that she can't be there personally. And she has turned the pandemic to her advantage and created membership programs. She does virtual programming. She has a podcast. So she really is doing everything that she was doing and more in a more direct way than she was doing beforehand. So I'm sharing this with you to remind you that you can look at things a bit differently, even in a negotiation. The T in the creative strategy is all about the time frame. And here I'll just remind you that Monica, when, in that first story I shared, she stood up and said, okay, I understand. You can always ask for a break. A lot of people think that the negotiation is starting at 9 a.m. We cannot stop negotiating until we reach an agreement. Everybody needs a break and everybody appreciates a break. So use that to your advantage. And understand also, with regards to the time frame, that it's not the first time you meet Amber and her team that you're going to get a contract, right? Remember Terry's story. It took over 2 years for her to land that contract. So keep in mind that you need to have a really realistic time frame for going into the negotiation and the contract approval. So the bad news is time flies. The good news is that you're the pilot, right? So remember that you can control the time frame or use it to your advantage. The I in the process is all about investment. And a lot of people think that, I can't afford to put more money into this. I can't afford to travel. I can't afford to do the marketing because, my business is tight and my budget is tight, and I'm going to go in there and negotiate this. Well, there's always a cost to a negotiation, right? And it's all about investments. It's investing your time in building the relationship, doing the research. It's a money investment, right? A financial investment, because you may have to fly to someone's place of business. And then finally, it's resources. You are investing resources as you're preparing for negotiation. So you're pulling some of your team off of a project to write the proposal, to think about the terms. And I had one of our members tell me that even if she doesn't get a contract, she always finds something that she learned as a result. So she looks at the investment of time and effort and resources as a very good thing, because that will inform the next opportunity that she has. The V is all about value add. So everybody likes to get a little something extra, right? And here I'm going to share this photo with you, which is this lovely couple of beautiful wedding dress and veil, to share the story of a coach that I know was working with a business owner who was complaining that every time she sold a wedding dress, this was her company was based in Coral Gables, Florida, right on Miracle Mile, where the rents are very high. The dresses are pricey, but the margin is not really all that high on those dresses because of all of the labor of the beading and the special fabrics and all. And so this person was telling her coach that, I don't know what to do, because every time I sell a dress, somebody asks me, the bride always asks me for a 10% discount. And a 10% discount can be really substantial when you're talking about a $15,000 or a $20,000 gown, right? And so the coach said, okay, so what do you have? Where do you have the highest markup in your boutique? And she said, the wedding veils. I get those veils, and then my team does the embellishment on the veils. So we can put a really high markup on those veils. And she said, the coach said to her, how about the next time someone asks you for a 10% discount on the wedding dress, you take her to your wall of veils and you say, I can't give you a 10% discount, but you can select whatever veil you'd like to complement your dress for free. And it worked. People were so impressed. And, keep in mind, what do you see in the wedding ceremony, right? As the bride and groom are getting married, what do you see? You see the back of her gown and you see a lot of times a really beautiful wedding veil. So brides were coming back to her to say, or potential brides were coming to her to say, I was at so-and-so's wedding and she told me you gave her that veil. I'd like the same deal. Okay, so as you're negotiating, think of what it is you're doing. What can you offer to your potential client, the person that you're negotiating with? Something that doesn't really cost you much, but that has a really high impact and something that they would be really impressed with. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. And finally, the E in the creative process is all about energy. And that has to do with the attitude that you have going in, right? Prepare yourself mentally. Remember to breathe during the negotiation process. It's not, so high powered, the type of negotiation that you're doing, that it's everything or nothing. And if it is, then you need to take a step back and say, okay, I need to rethink why this feels like it's all or nothing in this negotiation of a potential contract, right? So your energy is all about your attitude and your mindset. And during the pandemic, I found this on Facebook, and I thought that it's really appropriate. So I'm sharing it with you. It says, please take responsibility for the energy you bring into this space. Your words matter. Your behaviors matter. Our patients and our teams matter. Take a slow, deep breath and make sure your energy is in check before entering. Thank you. And I think that's a really good reminder. Before you enter into negotiation, take a slow, deep breath and make sure your energy is in check, right? So I've shared with you 3 stories and 8 different tools, right? Again, Monica and the tech solution, she did not want to accept that 25%. She countered with a 20% reduction. Terry finally got her, the contracts officer to see and feel the difference with her napkins. And then Abby, who created a whole new business as a result of listening to her client and coming up with a solution. And here are again the steps. So it's all about clarity, doing research, extra, not yourself. Remember, think about your employees, because women are fierce negotiators for other people. Look at and offer alternatives. Remember, as far as the time frame is concerned, that it doesn't have to be a marathon. You can always ask for a break. You are going to have to make some kind of an investment into the negotiation process, time, resources, or financial investment. The value add, remember, what do you have that they're going to be impressed with? It's not really going to cost you that much, that you can offer as part of the negotiation. And then finally, it's all about your energy. And this quote by Ruth Bader Ginsburg: so often in life, things that you regard as an impediment turn out to be great good fortune. So if you don't get that contract when you're negotiating the first time, really think about it and see, okay, where is there more room for improvement, right? What might I be able to do the next time around to actually land the contract? Right. And I'll end with an invitation for you to book a discovery call with either myself or Steph McPhee. We'll put our information in the chat. And we'd love to help you with your next negotiation. And let us know if there's anything that we can do to make your next negotiation successful. And I'm reminding everyone to make allies and believers, right? That's the whole resource and a part of building relationships, right? So I'm going to end the presentation and see if there are any questions or comments. let me see if I can see the chat. Steph, can you come back on? Did we have questions or comments?
No, there are no questions right now. But I did want to ask maybe Amber to kind of give her thoughts. I don't know if you have a story or just some tips on, since you're on the other side of this, right? From your perspective on negotiation. I think that would be really great.
Thanks, Steph. I tell you, with the very first story with Monica, so much of this, I said, I wish everybody had the benefit of getting this training, because I was there at Jackson in the height of the financial crisis that we all experienced over 10 years ago. And I remember our VP at the time walking in the door to myself. He was really coming to speak to my colleague, but our office was so small. So, but he came in the door, and we rarely saw him come in the door. So we knew it was something serious. And he came in the door and he said, I'm going to have you contact all of our consultants, because we need to cut their contracts at 20% across the board. So when I heard Monica's story, I said, this is real. Like, this is what really happens in real life, and it can happen at any moment. So to be unprepared for that conversation, I can only imagine how many vendors had that conversation with Jackson and walked away, not at the level of benefit that maybe Monica did, because she was prepared to negotiate. And then just the feedback for myself, I took a lot of notes, Nancy. I tell you, I was looking forward to this training. But for me, that asking for time, I think so many of us feel so pressured, especially, I guess, from my seat, which is interesting because I have everybody as a customer, even the vendors, you guys are my customers as well. So I can see sometimes the discomfort in some of the conversations, and a vendor wanting to be a really good partner for their customer, feeling the pressure to, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do this for you, right in that moment when, if from my seat, maybe I'm thinking you probably should have took a little more time to think about that. But I have to represent my organization as well. So that delicate balance, but just seeing the ways that people could really benefit from the strategies that Nancy, you've empowered our attendees with today. I think there's a lot of benefit in this information. I hope that most of us took the notes that we needed to take that will really help us strengthen those skills.
Beautiful, my pleasure.
And just to let everybody know, we did have a question real quick about the slides and the recording. And I'm sure if Amber's okay, we will definitely email everybody the slides. And then we typically post the training session on our YouTube channel. So give us about a week or so, because we're all headed directly to WeBank next week. So we will definitely let you guys know when it's available. So just wanted to touch that up.
Thank you. And thank you, Nancy, for that amazing wealth of information. Like I said, I hope I'm sure most of us were taking notes, because this is valuable information, and to receive it for free feels like a true gift. So I want to thank you for that. And thank you to WeBank for creating a forum to give this information to women business owners. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So at this time, we're going to transition into our panel discussion. You met our panelists earlier. We have a woman-owned business, and we have some representatives from Jackson's procurement department. And I think this is a good way to recap some of the things that we heard, but also look at how to apply those, practically. So if we could just go ahead and get started, I'll ask Kim. Why would you recommend not signing a contract as is? Why should someone just not sign a contract that they get in their hand as is? And take yourself off mute, please.
The reason I wouldn't is because, don't forget, the person you're dealing with, the contracting officer, yes, you have established, I would think, a relationship with them of some sort. They didn't make up that contract. The attorneys make up the contracts. They have to, their job is to protect their client. They talk lawyer speak. And you really shouldn't sign unless you have gone over with the officer that you're negotiating with. And I would suggest, if it's a large contract, to ask if there is room for negotiation, and have any of these contracts that are being proposed to you have been changed. Because sadly, some of the larger contracts, they will not negotiate, and they're just play hardball with you, and there is no negotiation. So I would open it with that, and I would not sign right away until I've had either a mentor, colleague, and or all attorney review. But keep in mind, there's the cost of the attorneys as well. You know, when you're trying to, especially, new startups, keep that in mind, and just keep educating yourself and reading.
Thank you, Kim. I'll ask Lori, from your side, on the procurement side for an organization, why should a vendor not sign a contract that they get just as is?
Okay, well, Kim did say it best, because attorneys create the boilerplates for our agreements. So not all contracts, services, and products are created equal. So everyone must consider all the terms in the contracts and be sure you incorporate the details of your business model. There may be certain things in the contract that you just cannot abide by. You don't want to take on that risk and that responsibility as a small business or a women-owned business, because you just simply can't. The risk is too high. So you must always not take contracts as is, because there's little things, little simple things in the contract that you just can't adhere to. So you want to make sure the risks are at a minimum level. So an example of trust contracts, Jackson Memorial Hospital is only located in Miami, Florida. A lot of the boilerplate agreements I get from contractors are, for litigation purposes, they want to have their contract tried in their city. So we have to make sure we take that exception and state, listen, Jackson Memorial Hospital is solely in Miami, Florida. We can only litigate in Miami, Florida. So that's an exception of the contract that we will inevitably take for all of our contracts, because we cannot go anywhere else because we're housed in Miami, Florida. So those are the little things that you have to make sure, that things that you cannot adhere to, you have to absolutely mitigate and eliminate from the contract so that you're protected.
Lori, thank you for that, because that brings up a great point. Some items in the contract you may not be able to negotiate. So I think that gives you an opportunity to say, is this a contract that I really want to enter? And, is it safe for me to enter this contract if I can't negotiate this term? So keep those things in mind as well. Johanna, thank you, Lori. Johanna?
Thank you, Amber. Well, Kim and Lori said it perfectly. I agree with everything they just said. And yes, a contract it shouldn't be just one-sided. It shouldn't be just for the benefit of one of the parties. It needs to be a mutual agreement that provides mutual benefits. That as a small business enterprise and women's enterprise, you need to ensure, as Lori said, that you can comply, that it's feasible for you to comply with terms and conditions. There are some, as you know, we are also governed by Miami-Dade County. So there are some regulations, for instance, that we're not able to not even review, not even consider changing. However, we always try to come to a mutual understanding, supporting each other. So it's a successful agreement. Our idea is not just to close the door on the vendor and say we can. No, it's always, let's work together. Let's see how can we can ensure that it's going to be a good relationship and a strong partnership.
Thank you, Johanna. I'm glad you said that, because sometimes vendors are interested in doing business with certain entities or certain industries, and you may have a perception that, no, they're not going to talk to me, or they're not going to give me an opportunity to negotiate. So it's good for you to hear. We're a government agency, and even we will take the time and have the interest of negotiating a contract. So don't use that as a barrier for yourselves when you're approaching certain industries or thinking about certain industries or agencies. Just ask the question. It never hurts to ask. So I'm going to ask you, Johanna, I'm going to stick with you. What does a negotiated contract look like to you? Like what are some of the key areas that vendors should look at when they're looking to negotiate?
I would say, as we mentioned before, that it benefits both parties. That is a win-win situation. We always ensure that, depending on the scope of work that is reviewed and agreed by both parties, that it includes all deliverables, the responsibilities of each party is clearly stated in the contract. So we can ensure that during the contract, there's going to be compliance, there's going to be accountability from both parties as well. The price to be outlined clearly, that it has been completely, that a market research has been completed for that contract. So we can ensure that everything is included, that it makes sense for both parties, and that is competitive in the way that, okay, what are you as vendor providing to Jackson, and why are we going to give you to also provide you a benefit? That we include the good people, the good staff from both parties, project managers, the leading projects for, leading to each contract. That's key. Ensuring that everyone that is key to that contract is involved from the beginning for review of that contract, market research, benchmarking, negotiation, through execution, and also throughout the life of the contract. We need to ensure that everybody is always in tune and managing the contract and meeting, both sides to see what needs to be changed, what needs to be improved, or so you're just making sure that every step of the contract is successfully reviewed and agreed by both parties.
Thank you, Johanna. Kim, what is
Okay.
a good negotiated contract? What does that mean for you as a business owner?
What it means to me is I want to know the annual spend. I got to know my bottom line in order to be able to fulfill this contract. And the length of time is very important because prices go up for your cost of goods. In my case, you need to know the payment schedule and be aware that a lot of facilities, because I'm talking about in the healthcare, because of our minority standing, will negotiate a better payment option because they want to try and help out the small business owner. Understand the process, like in my case, who orders, does the PO come in? Who do I get a hold of if I have this issue or that issue? And then in my case as well, does this have to go to a value analysis committee or is this handled prior? And just try your best to understand how you can help them and how you're going to be helped, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I really like you gave very specific categories in that contract. I hope that our attendees were taking notes about that, especially the payment terms. That was, it triggered some special memories of our conversations in the past.
Help, Amber.
Thankfully, we haven't had to have those conversations in a long time. But it's important to understand those and make sure that there are terms that you can live with, and if there's a way to adjust the terms. I know for Jackson, our payment terms are 45 days, and that may be a strain for companies that can't extend their payment that far. So it's very important to have that conversation up front.
I'd like to add one more
sorry,
thing.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, may I add one more thing, Amber?
Sure.
To whoever's on there and listening, dealing with Jackson, you're dealing, and I'm not just saying this because I'm on the panel and because I've been with you guys, but they are a selective breed that they have procurement officers that truly care about their patients. And that's not always true with a lot of other facilities. And I don't mind saying it at this point in my company's progress to get the brand out there. So someone might be a little bit apprehensive about going to Jackson because they're so big, or they heard, oh my gosh, you get squashed by the big bear. I would strongly suggest step out there. And that's something that Nancy had mentioned with one of her stories was, and it's true, men will jump in and just do anything. As women, we hold back and think we have to have everything in a row. And all I'm trying to say is, don't be afraid of Jackson. They will be there for you, and they are fair.
Thank you, Kim.
Really.
I think that makes me feel good, and I'm sure Lori and Johanna feel as well, because the work is not easy, and we have to have some hard conversations sometimes. But like you said, it's all for the benefit of our patients. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Lori, for a good negotiated contract, what are those important categories that people need to consider?
Okay, so for me, a good negotiated contract is basically a collaborative effort in which both parties are satisfied with the outcome, creating a win-win situation. One of the main things that I would like to say, especially for small businesses, sometimes they are intimidated by an entity such as Jackson Health Systems. And I, for one, like to go into the contract and make sure everybody understand all of the terms and conditions and what they're getting themselves into. You must make sure that all blanks are filled properly and everyone knows their responsibilities. So you'll have responsibilities of the contractor, responsibilities of the trust. Everything and anything you feel is necessary to have a perfect outcome for the contract, you must explicitly state it in the contract. That is a big, big deal. Some contracts are very vague, and then when something goes down, no one wants to take responsibility. So you must make sure you're clear and concise with your contract terms and responsibilities. That's one thing for me. Additionally, a part of the contract when it comes to indemnification and insurance provisions. Sometimes, like an entity like Jackson Health Systems, we have huge amounts. Small businesses sometimes cannot sustain those huge amounts as far as insurance is concerned. So that's part of the contract that you would negotiate. You would look at the product line or the service line that you're providing, and then you will ensure that the insurance requirements are not too high. And then our risk management team will take a look at it and take it into consideration based on the provisions of the product. Don't just accept at face value what the boilerplate agreement, states. Sometimes it's for small products. So your insurance requirements shouldn't be as high. So you should take that into consideration. Additionally, another part of the contract will be confidentiality. As a public entity, Jackson Health System, we, under the Sunshine Law, we're able to, give out information as requested from anyone who requests information about a certain contract. So if you have trade secrets or things that you feel is confidential and you don't want anyone privy to that information, you have to make sure you label it as a trade secret or confidential, so it's redacted from the contract. So some of those things you might want to make sure you consider it, because you have to protect your business at all costs and minimize risk as much as feasibly possible. So those are the key things outside of the win-win situation, of course. But take a look at your insurance requirements, your responsibilities. Make sure whoever you're engaging your business with, they know exactly what they're responsible for, and you know exactly what you're responsible for. So those are the biggest things to execute a proper contract.
Thank you, Lori. And I think that you brought a good element to this whole discussion, because a negotiated contract is a good contract. Like you said, it's a win-win for all parties. So I think that is an important step in contracting as a whole. I think that every contract needs to be negotiated. And it goes back to that first question: why should you not sign a contract as is? Because there's a lot to consider in order for the contract to be successful and also to be beneficial to all parties. So thank you for mentioning that, Lori.
Mm-hmm.
Kim, you talked about having an attorney review contracts, and I know I've suggested that to some vendors, and there are resources out there to help facilitate that process, especially as it relates to cost considerations. But in addition to attorneys, and you also mentioned a mentor, is there anyone else that can possibly help a business owner prepare for that negotiation? We heard some strategies from Nancy earlier. but are there people that you can turn to maybe in your inner circle or in your network to help you prepare for that negotiation?
I think they should raise their prices.
Kim?
I'm sorry, I got distracted. I didn't know if it was my turn or.
Yes, it's your turn.
I'm
It's your
I'm
turn.
so sorry. Who do well, when I started my business, I did 2 years of R&D. I had 3 main mentors. I was very, very blessed, and I turned to them all the time. They were very successful. One started e-commerce. One was in the garment industry for 3 generations, dealt nationally and internationally. And the other, is in procurement. Now she's retired, I can say this. Sandy Mint from over at Jackson Health was prior to Baylor. So I turned to those type of people, the mentors that I really have before I go to the attorney. Now, when I'm saying with the contracts with the attorney, I'm talking about like with the big GPOs, those type of contracts, or with the Walmart or something like that nature. That's when I would definitely not want to play with the big bear. I would want to have somebody really reviewing everything. But I think your mentors and your colleagues are wonderful. And I've reached out to WBENC before as well, Nancy. Yeah. So that's what I do.
And I think this is an important topic because some business owners may feel like they are not equipped on their own, to approach that negotiation. So who else is out there to help them? I'd like to ask Johanna or Lori from the Jackson side, who have you seen vendors lean on for their help with negotiation, or have you seen that from your seat?
Okay, I'll start. From vendors, as you all know, we have different size of vendors, from small business enterprise to multi-million-dollar companies as well. They usually bring a team. They have their personnel that is more subject matter expert in pricing. They have their personnel who are about contracts, kind of how we are divided. They also come with that, with that kind of team. What we always recommend is know your team, know where you stand in the market. Come prepared to know how you stand. Do your market research. Are you competitive in the market? Are you above or below? Because that's gonna be like your main area. Your how can I say it? How you're gonna be able to not fight with us, because it's a mutual collaboration, but how can we come to an agreement? Because we're doing our market research. We have a team where we reach for benchmarking, market research, subject matter experts for redlining. It's a team effort from our part. So we always recommend for you to have the same, to have know where you stand, know what you're gonna bring to the table, know the benefits that you're gonna give us, and that way we can. And we also help you negotiate. It's not that we just come with a team and we try to take advantage. No, like I said, our goal is to have a win-win contract, that both parties benefit from this contract. Not that you're gonna give us just the best price and you're gonna lose throughout the term of the contract. That's not the idea. We are also, reasonable. It's a mutual partnership. So we are always helping each other and guiding each other, and Jackson is supporting as well. We're gonna support and making sure that you're not being taken advantage of.
Thank you, Johanna. I like how you said we're interested in being a good partner as well. We're looking for good partners, and we want to be a good partner because we need the service that you're providing. We're contracting with you because you're the subject matter expert. You're the expert at providing this product or service. So we need you to be successful so that our operations can continue and our patients receive the best care. So I'm going to switch to Lori and ask for an example of a time that a negotiation has, and I'll ask you from the Jackson side, where you've engaged in a negotiation with a vendor and it's actually benefited Jackson. And I'm asking this so that our vendor community gets an understanding of what we're actually looking for in terms of a win-win on a contract.
Okay, well, all of our contracts that we sign are a win-win. And the bottom line is Jackson has the need for the contract, and every executed contract is a win. And as we engage with different vendors in the community for the needs that we need fulfilled, it's always a win-win situation. All of the contract terms may have not, have been up and down and things like that, but the bottom line is both parties sign, and that's an executed contract. So all of our contracts that we derive, it's all based on what the customers need, all of our departments. So a requisition is put in the system. Inevitably, we need that product or service, and we work with our small businesses and our and all the vendors in the community that can provide that service to get, the contract done in the best need of the trust. So
Thank you. So I'm going to switch it to Kim from an owner side. Do you have a great example of a time that you were able to negotiate something that really worked out for you in the contracting process? I know earlier you talked about shorter payment terms.
Yeah. Actually, I have. My whole negotiating perspective is, first of all, to establish a relationship, because good relationships make for good business. But in my particular case, I have a unique product that's reimbursable, that we can increase their Press Ganey scores at the hospital. We can, which is, first, maybe somebody doesn't know what that is. It's how the patients rate the hospitals, which brings more revenue to them. So they're that's something that their little ears tweak on. I also, this is kind of funny from listening to Nancy about offering something, and I really didn't do this. As you all know, I'm very passionate about my product, and I want to make sure that the women are taken care of. But Nancy mentioned about the bride, about giving a veil away. I always give away a sizing chart, because it's laminated for the operating rooms, and this helps them to better help with sizing on the patient, giving better patient care. I always try and give a cost analysis. A lot of times they don't realize, again, I'm in a different space, but they don't realize that the true cost of what they're spending on a product that doesn't have the additional features that we have, they're actually spending more money. So I try and do my research and show them an analysis where, they might, and Jackson wasn't doing this, I don't want to say, but there's a lot of places out there that they might be wrapping the patients in gauze and sending them home. And actually, we've done analysis on that. They're spending more money than if they were to buy our product because of the reimbursement. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I like to make sure that they understand the codes that they can get reimbursed on, what the true bottom line is, not just the surface. Okay, you're paying $100 for this, but what you're really, really getting from it. So to me, that's very important, and it has been very beneficial as well in negotiating my contracts. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Kim. And I'm going to ask Johanna, do you have an example of where a negotiation may have worked out in Jackson's favor?
Well, like Lori said, all contracts are a win-win situation. Every contract executed is a successful negotiation. I believe all contracts provide benefits to Jackson. We are reaching out to our vendors because we need something, as you mentioned before. We need something from you. Let's help each other. So every contract provides benefits to us. And the idea is to also help the vendor grow. They're growing as we are, they're helping us grow as well. So all contracts provide benefits to us.
And I like that perspective from both Johanna and Lori. They're consistent, and I think it shows that as a contracting entity, we're not necessarily looking to take advantage of a vendor. We are just looking to get what we need at the best cost, at the best outcome for our patients. So hopefully this discussion, gives our attendees some kind of comfort, some comfort level in approaching large entities, that we're not necessarily looking to take advantage of you. We just need what you sell.
And we're looking for your special sauce.
Yeah.
So the negotiation is your prime opportunity to show off what you have available so you can bring value to all of our procurements. As Nancy gave the example of how, you know, for sustainability, how she actually, you know, had them feel, you know, to see how the tissue was and all that stuff. So you can bring your confidence, you can bring your good strategies, your special sauce to the procurement and outshine any other vendor that we may be considering. So that is when you're negotiating is when you have the prime time to show off your confidence, your skills, what you have to offer to the trust or whatever vendor or whoever you're negotiating with. That's your time to shine.
Thank you, Lori. You put it perfectly. You put it perfectly. And with our last question, we are partnering with WBEC, and it's very important that if we have attendees that are on or are listening to this afterwards, if you're considering certification, woman-owned business enterprise certification, I'd like to just get from you, Kim, what has this certification meant for your company?
I tell this story for the past 13 years. If I wasn't a WBENC certified contractor, I would have never been able to break into this space. Never. They have to have at least one. They have to fill the need. And I'm very grateful because I'm telling you the truth. I would have never been able to break into the healthcare field ever. That's what gave me the help.
Thank you, Kim. Certification is the key to open the door. You have to show up, you have to walk through, and you have to win, you have to earn the work, but the certification is the key to open the door. So there's the WBE certification. Jackson, we utilize an SBE certification. I'm going to ask my colleague Miranda to plug a little of that information in our chat today for our attendees that are still on. So certification is key. If you are not certified, please look into the various options to help you get in the door and grow your companies.
Let me ask you this question, Amber. So a lot of our members want to do business with Jackson Health, right? But they may not be at the size that you need for a larger contract. So do you have a second tier program? And how do you feel about women business owners coming to you and saying, I'm a diverse vendor, I'm WBEC certified, and I'd like to be introduced to your primes because I could fill that portion of, you know, the diversity requirement?
Thank you for the question, Nancy. The answer to that is we do that work every day. We speak with vendors every day because I mentioned we have 7 hospitals, clinics, urgent care centers throughout our community. And it's important to us that if a patient goes from one facility to the next, the only thing that changes is outside. That when they're inside our walls, they get the same experience, they see the same thing, they get the same treatment, they get the same service from facility to facility. So that means that we have huge contracts because we need one service provider for a specific line of business to make sure, you know, to ensure that consistency and help us with our HCAHPS scores on those press gaining surveys that Kim mentioned. So we know that we have very, very large contracts, but we do capture the tier 2 spend with diverse suppliers. So we do ask our primes, what are you doing with woman-owned businesses? How much is the spend from the business that we're doing with you? How much is this impacting women-owned businesses? So that is something that we are more than happy to facilitate the introduction, the understanding of how we do the type of business that you're in. That's one of the major conversations that we have, is to get that understanding. And then if it does fall under a contracted service provider, how you can get involved in that. So just reach out to us.
Yeah, I think it's a really great way also to get your foot in the door, right? First, you have to build the relationship with the supplier diversity and the procurement team. Put yourself out there. Don't wait until you're, you know, a $50 million company to think that you could do business with Jackson Health. you can do business with Jackson Health, even if you're a smaller company, by coming in this way. You develop that relationship, then you do an outstanding job on the contract, right? And you keep the team up to date and up to speed about what you're doing and how it's going. And the next time it comes around, maybe there may be, an opportunity for you to get an even bigger piece of that contract. So.
And I think too, one thing that we don't have a lot of conversations about is if you get connected with one of our service providers, we're not their only customer. And we've had relationships that have expanded well beyond Jackson. I know of a woman-owned business I'm thinking of right now, but because of that Jackson relationship, they work with that prime now across the nation. So that's an awesome opportunity.
Yeah, so thank you guys so much. What an amazing session. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Amber, number one, for reaching out and for hosting this, and to Lori and Johanna and Kim, thank you also for joining us and sharing your stories and all of your tips and inspiring us all to figure out, if we haven't already, our secret sauce. If you do want to know more about certification, definitely reach out to Nancy and I. We are so happy. If you are not part of our tribe, we want to welcome you most definitely, such as Kim, and help you to have that phenomenal confidence that you saw today. So we wish you all a wonderful week wherever you are, and good luck in your business. Good fortune to all, and thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you, panelists. Thank you so
Bye.
much.